Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Today's topic is the basics of purification. While we wait for others to join us, inshallah, we will do a recap of the types of rulings. Please make sure you download the book and you are following along with the book. So we're starting at line 54, but we're going to do just a recap of the quick lines before that. Starting with line 50. The division of legal rulings. So when it comes to doing something in Islam, we often hear that the default of something is halal in regard to just general actions and types of food and so on. But the default for types of worship and for meat is haram unless stipulated by the Sharia. Although this is kind of accurate, this is when it comes to the scholars who derive the rulings. For a person who doesn't know the rulings and it's not his job to derive the rulings, for you and I, it is not permissible. The rule is different. لا يحل لأحد أن يفعل شيئا حتى يعلم حكم الله فيه. It is not permissible for any individual to do anything until they know Allah's ruling in it. So you're going to start a new business. You have to know the ruling. Yes, the scholar who is deriving the ruling, they can't say it's haram unless there's something in the Sharia that stipulates it's haram. But you as a person who's going to do that business, you can't just say, oh, I don't know, so I'm going to do it. No, if you don't know, the default is then don't do it until you learn that it's okay. So a lot of people get those things confused. So seeking knowledge is very vital. What is required knowledge? What knowledge is required for every Muslim to know? Well, it is the knowledge of what they do and what they're required to do. So basically the knowledge of all the 5 pillars, because every Muslim is required to some extent to do the 5 pillars. So to know about the 5 pillars is necessary. And the knowledge of what you're required to do. Meaning, and the knowledge of what you do, meaning that if you're a doctor, you need to know the rulings of being a doctor and the rulings that apply to you. So the things that are relating to what you do. So if I'm confused, what do I need to know? What do I need to learn Islamically? Should I go and learn some random topic? Should I listen to random videos? No, you need to know exactly with certainty, studying properly, what is revealed, what is mandated regarding somebody who's in my position, who does what I do and is required to do what I'm required to do. Well, if you're a Muslim, the thing all Muslims have in common then is the 5 pillars. That's why when we talk about required knowledge, generally we're talking about knowledge relating to who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the prophets, the companions, etc. And then so matters pertaining to the shahada, and then purification and prayer, charity, fasting, and hajj. So that's required knowledge, yes. But on top of that is the knowledge of whatever you actually do in your life. Well, right now, unfortunately, people, they never study that required knowledge. They never go and learn the knowledge that they need, even in regard to their basics and their prayer and their purification, much less their businesses and their marriages and the matters of their life. So alhamdulillah, in this class at least we're going to remedy that by going step by step through the required knowledge in regard to purification and prayer. And yes, the thing is, most Muslims, they're going to pick up 98% or 96% or 95%. When the 5, 4, 3, 2, or even 1% that they didn't learn, their wudu could be invalidated. Their ghusl could be invalidated. One common example is preventative barriers on nail polish that stops water from reaching the fingers for wudu, for ghusl, for women. Right? A lot of women, they don't think about it. They just do it, and their wudu for years and years is invalid because of their fake nails or so on. They just didn't think about it. A lot of Muslims also, they never learned what ghusl is. Or a lot of people, they have some gap in their purification that their wudu, or ghusl is not being accepted or not being done in a valid way. Now, we said it is not permissible, so the default ruling is impermissible until you learn what the ruling is. Well, what are the different rulings? What could the rulings be? They're one of 5. Right? And as I mentioned this before in a class, we said that generally I'll do a whiteboard, and on the whiteboard I'll write the 5 rulings, and then I'll write their corresponding values. So the different values, if you want to go back to this and take note, are plus, meaning that if you do this, you will be rewarded, or it's a rewarded action. And negative sign, meaning that you are promised punishment. And we don't say that you are punished because we hope that Allah forgives us, but the negative means promised punishment. Then just a dot for neutral, neither rewarded nor punished. And then you can put a B for blamed. Okay? So the first ruling then is fard, which would have next to it, so I have 2 brackets, two columns. One that says do, and one that says don't. So fard, if you do it, plus. If you don't do it, minus. So if you do it, you are rewarded. If you don't do it, you are promised punishment. Or deserving punishment. Is that clear so far? What's a step below fard? Sunnah. Also known, fard is also known as wajib. So fard and wajib, same thing in the fard column. Under it is sunnah. Ruling number 2 is sunnah. Also, and in this column are, or in this block are mandub, mustahab, and under the do column, you put plus, you're rewarded if you do it. On the don't column, you can put a period, a dot, or negative. So sometime, sorry, not negative, excuse me, a B or a dot. The B meaning blamed. So for the major sunnahs, if you leave it, you're blamed. If you intentionally leave it, you're blamed. For some minor sunnahs, then leaving them is not, you're not blamed.
What do you mean by blamed?
So that means it's really not good. It's like it's not neutral. It's like you're doing something wrong, although you're not getting a sin.
Like makruh?
Like makruh. Because makruh is coming up. Makruh, if you do it, you're blamed. Just like some sunnahs, if you don't do it, it is makruh. You're blamed. Okay? So that's what we mean by blamed. It's blameworthy, although not sinful. Okay? And there's a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a category like this. Then we go down one more column, and we are in the, one more row, and then we are in number 3, which is halal or mubah, meaning permissible. If you do it, neutral. If you don't do it, neutral. And the example I used before was like choosing a particular color of clothes to wear for that day. There is no particular color of clothes that in and of itself you're rewarded or punished for wearing or blamed. In and of itself, right? If you're wearing, blue to a Crips territory, obviously in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with the blue, but the where you're wearing it. you know. Or if a lady is wearing, you know, hot pink and going and mixing with a bunch of men, it's just kind of weird, you know. It's a different, there are different rulings depending on where you go and how, but I'm saying in and of itself, the color of your clothing, whether you made biryani today or you made, you know, kebsa, it's halal. You're not rewarded for making one over the other. Then a step down from that is makruh, or disliked. So far we have fard and wajib, meaning required. Number 2 is sunnah, mustahab, mandub, meaning recommended. Number 3 is halal or mubah, meaning permissible. Number 4 is makruh, meaning disliked. For disliked, if you do it, you're blamed. Do is blamed, and if you don't do it, you're rewarded for leaving it. Then the last category, which is haram or forbidden. If you do it, negative, you're deserving of punishment. If you don't, if you leave it, you are rewarded. So those are the 5 rulings. Look at the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how there's so many positives in this and only 2 negatives. If you do fard, if you do sunnah, if you leave makruh, you're rewarded. Okay, we'll start the main text, inshallah. So he said the divisions of legal rulings in line 50 are 5 desired, obligatory, recommended, disliked, unlawful, and lastly neutral, allowed. We said it differently. So the command which is strict is called a fard or wajib, and if it is lower level it is called as mandub. So that's important to know. Actually it's fard, wajib, then beneath that, and beneath that is sunnah, which is very, very highly recommended. When we say sunnah in the Maliki madhab, it is important to know. Sunnah is near required, but it's, you know, when we say sunnah, meaning never leave it unless you have an excuse. Then beneath that we have mandub, which is recommended. Sunnah is like reading Maghrib prayer out loud, doing the middle tahiyyat in your salah, right? Wiping your ears in wudu. These are all sunnahs which generally as Muslims we treat as if they're nearly required. So when you hear the word sunnah, there's no such thing as just a sunnah. Mandub is a lower level of recommendation where it's encouraged, but it's not the biggest deal if you leave it, although, hey, if it's not too much out of your way to do it, do it. Don't leave it for no reason. Okay.
Tahiyyat masjid, would that be?
Tahiyyat masjid would be actually, the ranking of prayers is different. So there's fard, and there's fard kifaya, and then there's sunnah mu'akkada and sunnah, and then there's nafil mu'akkad. It would fall under a nafil. So for example, somebody who has qada prayers can't pray tahiyyat masjid. We'll get to that later, inshallah. So in that case, the person should pray qada when they enter the masjid before they sit, rather than tahiyyat masjid. Okay. Fard is of 2 types, communal and individual. Funeral prayer, communal obligation. If some people pray it, it's not a requirement for everybody to pray it. But if nobody prays it, then everybody will be in sin, etc. We went over this. I was just buying time for everybody to join. Okay. Line 54, the book of purity. The first thing we'll discuss when we talk about purity, purification, is water. In the Maliki madhab, doesn't matter a lot or a little water. The ruling is the same. Okay, in other madhabs, the najasa affects water differently if it's a lower amount of water. For us, it's all the same. So he says, purity is obtained by water, which is safe from being changed with anything which fell into it or was mixed with it. Some details. There are exceptions, which we're going to say, but in its color, taste, or smell. In its color, taste, or smell. The three factors for water, that if even one is changed by something not usually found around water, that water is not usable for purification. Neither for wudu and ghusl, nor for washing away najasa from the floor or from your clothes. Okay, line 55. When water is changed with an impurity, it is thrown away. When water is changed with najasa, you shouldn't use that water for normal uses. You shouldn't use it for normal uses. And if it is changed with something pure, then it is still proper to use for regular daily tasks. So impure water, don't use it. Pure but changed water, like let's say lemonade. You drink lemonade. It's changed by lemons and sugar, right? Rose water. Whatever water that's color, taste, or smell is changed, it's no longer usable for purification. You can use it for whatever it's used for, but it's not used to remove filth from your clothes or your place of prayer, and it's not used to make wudu. The water that can be used to make wudu and to remove impurity is water that is either unchanged in its color, taste, or smell, or changed by something that is naturally or normally found around water. Regionally. The key word here is regionally. So if you open your tap and you drink that water, does it taste like normal water? Yeah? Or does it taste off because it's tap water?
Well, compared to purified,
Yeah.
It's off.
It's off. There's a taste to it. There's a change in its taste from pure water, right? But that water, that change that's normal of water right now, right? To even when you said, if you compare it to purified water, then there's a difference, but it's just water, right? So that water is okay to use because regionally, that's how water tastes like. That's how water is like. That's the water that's available. That's a normal thing to be mixed with water. Also, if you're getting water from a basin, from a pond, from a whatever, and there's like red dirt there, if it's changing its color and its taste by that red dirt, you can still use it. If you're using water from the ocean that's changed by salt, it's changed by sand, that's fine. Seaweed, fish, all of those things are things normally found around water. They don't affect the status of the water being purifying. So the water has to be both pure and purifying. Okay, so the water that is used for purification is both pure and purifying. Tahur, meaning tahir and mutahhir, pure and purifying. A step below that is pure, tahir, ghayr mutahhir, pure but not purifying. So let's say you added some lemon drops to your water. No longer can use it for wudu. You can drink it, no problem. You can, wash yourself with it, but it's not going to remove najasa. Right? That's pure but not purifying. Then there's impure water. Right? Impure water such as, water that's mixed with filth. There's other categories, but that's just the basic gist of it. So if the water was changed, so we're at line 56, except if what changed it was pure and is found along with water in most cases regionally, like red dirt. Such water changed with something pure normally found alongside water can be considered pure and purifying, similar to water obtained from melting ice or snow. Right? Water from melting ice or snow. What if you have like water that is, next to a tree with fragrant leaves, and those leaves fell into one corner of the pond, and you scooped up a cup of that water, and it smells like those leaves? You can't use it, because that's not something that's normally around water. That's just there in one area, right? It's not like the whole region, all the water, smells like that. No, literally, if you scoop the water from a different area in the pond, it would be normal. So we're talking about water that is, we're talking about changes from like salt, from mud, clay, dirt, melting snow, or like tap water, etc.
So when you say regional, you mean
like here in America, here in California, this is the water that we have, right? It's just regionally, like normally here, or if you go somewhere else on Earth, the water that they have may have a tinge of red in it. You go to the mountains you go to the Tahoe forest, right? It's all trees. The water there, any natural source of water, you're gonna find as soon as there's any movement around the area, like let's say you're going for a swim over there. As soon as you take like a couple steps, the red dirt rises and mixes with the water. Can you use that water for wudu? Yes, because that's a natural, normal thing. That's yeah, and it's. But if it's like an external plant that's only in one area, no, we're talking about, or something that's added later, and all that. Okay. But if you add the salt later, it's still fine. So if you add salt to water or minerals to water, like minerals added for taste, those are minerals that are normally found around water. They're adding it to make it taste like water, right? So that's fine. Got it?
But why didn't you also say that lemon is added to water?
Yeah, but it's not normally found in water.
Okay.
It's not naturally found in water anywhere. There's no region on Earth in which the water tastes like lemons, right? Otherwise, let me know, we'll bottle it and we'll sell it.
Natural lemon water.
Yeah, natural lemon water, that'd be great. So such water can be considered pure and purifying, similar to water obtained from melting ice and snow. All right, now is the fun part, wudu. We're going to go through the fards of it. We're going to go through the sunnahs of it. We're going to go through the mandubs of it. Well, hey, didn't we just say sunnahs and mandubs belong in the same category? They belong in the same category as in, but if you look at the, if you don't do them, there's a difference. For sunnahs, you're actually rewarded greater for doing them, and you're blamed for leaving them. And whereas mandubs, you're rewarded for doing them, but it's not as big of a deal if you leave them.
Blamed meaning what? Like,
Blame meaning it's blameworthy. You're doing something wrong,
but it's not haram.
but it's not haram. Okay, so here. First section is the fards of wudu, the wajibs of wudu. Over here, they call wudu wet ablution. That's the term that they used. So the fards of wudu differ across different madhabs. But there are 4 that are agreed upon because those are the ones in the Quran. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين. Face, arms, head, feet. So the face, the hands and the arms, the wiping of the head, and washing of the feet. Those are agreed upon across all 4 madhabs that they are required. In the Hanafi madhab, those are the only requirements. And don't worry if you don't know the difference of madhabs or whatever, you're listening to this and you're new to Islam, don't worry about it. generally you're going to be doing all of them anyways. In the Shafi'i madhab it's 6, in the Maliki madhab it's 7. So for us, on top of those 4, before those 4 we add intention. So intention, face, hands and arms, wiping the head and washing the feet. And then we also add dalk and fawr. Dalk means scrubbing, even lightly, and fawr means continuity. So let's talk about those one by one. We'll read through it. Section on the wajibs of wet ablution. The wajibs of wet ablution are 7. They are passing the underside of one's hand over the washed part. So that's called dalk. That's not a proper definition of dalk. Dalk just means scrubbing with your hand or with an object. Not even scrubbing, just passing your hand over it. You have to touch the areas that are washed. So when Allah says wash your face, it's not pour water over your face, it's not rinse. For us, wash and rinse are different. The Maliki madhab is the only madhab that requires this. That we say, okay, well, Allah said wash, that means we're not going to just rinse our hands, we have to wash our hands. Which means the water has to run over them and something else has to also touch them. Which makes sense.
So jumping in the shower for wudu is not permissible?
Jumping in the shower for wudu is perfectly fine as long as you run your hand over it. You do the actual, you run your hand over those areas. Okay, so that's called dalk for number 1. For number 2, doing one action of ablution immediately after the other without a large break. That's called fawr. Memorize the word fawr. In other words, it's called continuity. So number 2 here would be continuity, also known as fawr. Why is fawr important? Because it's a requirement in wudu, it's a requirement in ghusl, it's a requirement between tayammum and ghusl, between tayammum and wudu, salah, it's a requirement. It comes up so many times in fiqh when we talk about something being connected to something else time-wise, with continuity. This word comes over and over and over, fawr. So, what is fawr? It's the time period that those two things, those two actions are still considered connected. And I'll define exactly how much time that is. So, in other words, it's saying when you make your wudu, you can't just begin half of your wudu, then leave for 20 minutes, and then come back and do the second half of your wudu. Right? You have to do it continually. So how long of a break is considered too long? Where now you've broken continuity? It is technically the average time that it takes an average person in average weather for one of their limbs to dry outside. In other words, continuity is if you took a break of 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes in between the steps. Okay? You're an average sized person. This is average weather. You can go make wudu outside and see how long it takes to dry. Or just wash your arm and then just hold it. You want to do that?
Did you mention average weather too?
Average weather.
Would this be average weather?
This is, less sunny than usual, right?
It's like average is like 70.
Yeah. What is, this is probably like 65, yeah?
65.
But there's no sun. So this is not average weather for us. Okay? So, about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. So don't take a break that long. If you do, then you have to start again. Unless you forgetfully leave a part out of your wudu, then when you remember it, you have 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes to go back and do it again. Okay, so that's called fawr. Not taking too long breaks. Number 3, starting with an intention. And he gives the definitions of which intentions are allowed. Line 58. And the person can intend to lift a state of ritual impurity. So lifting the state of ritual impurity, this is called raf'ul hadath. When you pass gas, when you use the bathroom, when you sleep, deep sleep, you've lost your wudu. You're in a state of minor or a minor hadath. If somebody has intercourse, now they have done major hadath. There's no sin to any of those things. Those are normal daily life things. But now you're in a state where you're not pure enough to enter into the prayer. And if you have intercourse, then you can't even enter inside the masjid. So, how does somebody remove this state of impurity from them? Well, if it's minor impurity due to like sleeping or using the bathroom or whatever, then they're in a state of minor impurity. Making wudu, one of the intentions you have is to remove your ritual impurity. And wudu, of course, only lifts minor ritual impurity. So that's one intention that's accepted. So if your whole life you've been making wudu because, oh, I don't have wudu, and once I make wudu, I will have wudu. And in your mind, you're like, me not having wudu, meaning I'm in a state where I am impure, that's fine. That intention suffices. Another intention that you can also have, and you'll be rewarded for, and will suffice you on its own, is intending to perform wudu as a necessary obligation. You realize that wudu is required, so you're making wudu because it's required before performing an act, right? Or if you realize that, oh, I'm not allowed to pray now, I'm doing these actions because after I do them, I will be able to pray. Then that intention suffices for whatever action you intended to make it for. That requires wudu. Okay, so those are the three intentions. Removing ritual impurity, removing hadath. Memorize that word, hadath. Ritual impurity. Intending to perform a fard, or a necessary obligation. And number three, to remove to make certain acts of worship permissible, or as they have it here, or to intend to remove a preventative barrier between him and an act which requires one to be in wudu for, or in other words, to make a certain acts of worship permissible. So those are the first three: dalk, scrubbing; fawr, continuity; and the third is intention. Generally, I teach it in a different order, but this is the order in this book. Line 59. The next fard of wudu is washing the face. The face is from the normal hairline, so if I can't make wudu while wearing the same imam, I would have to roll it up. So it's from normal hairline down to the bottom of the chin, along the sides of the face, the hairline to the ears, and down the jawbone. Anything beneath is not part of the face. So be careful. If you go like this all day, you're going to miss the sides. If you go like this all day, you're going to miss the middle. So you have to get this, get under the nose, under the lips. Because even when you go like this, you're not going to get it all. So you have to scrub. Up and down helps. Get that. As far as the lips, say mm. Whatever you can touch when you're saying mm is required. To touch. So for us, we said that scrubbing is required. So all your face, make sure you follow under your eyes. All of that. If you become too obsessive about it, then leave it. And realize that this is the only requirement in the Maliki Madhab. In the Maliki Madhab, if you are getting obsessive over anything, getting OCD over anything, then that's a problem. And you must leave it and consider it done. When you're like, did I do it? Did I not do it? Did I do it? Did I not do it? Oh, maybe let me just do a little bit more. No, leave it. Okay, so that's washing the face. Washing of the two hands and arms. So we know that generally when we make wudu, we do hands, mouth, nose, then the face. We have no problem with that. We're talking about the fards, which is the face, then the hands and arms. So even though you wash your hands at the beginning, you're going to do your hands and your arms. Down to the elbows, including the elbows past your elbows enough to be certain that your elbows are done. Both sides, Keeping your hand open is ideal. So that's hands and arms. By the way, the requirement for all of these things is one time. One time.
So doing it 3 times, that would be...
We're going to get to that right now, inshallah.
Next two are sunnah.
Inhaling, no, we're going to get to it, inshallah. Inhaling water in the nose. So excuse me, no, I'm washing the face, washing of the hands and arms, wiping the head. So the way you do the head, thumb to temple, interlocking fingers, and then if we go like that all the way, while running the thumbs behind the ear until you reach here, you've gotten everything. So, because now, for wiping the hair, the area between your hair and your ears is also required to wipe. See, in the Hanafi madhab, you have to do 1/4 of your head for you to be considered finishing your head, wiping your head. In the which is a good dispensation to take for people who have difficulty wiping their entire head. For women who have whatever certain conditions or their hair, they have to put something on their hair and so on, or like they can't, it's hard for them to take stuff out and whatever, and they're going to miss the prayer. So realize that in the Hanafi madhab, as long as 1/4 gets done, you're fine. In the Maliki madhab, it gets pretty strict, because if you have hair ties or preventative things, then then they should also be removed. If you have thick, tight braids, there is an excuse for them. You can wipe over them. But if you have like loose braids, then you have to wipe all of the hair. So you have to wipe through the hair until the end of the hair. So for us, and if you don't have hair, then still the head all the way to the back. So you have to cover all that surface area. This is the shape. You stick your head, your hands to your head. So if you have your hands loose like this, then you're not going to get this part. You want to stick your hand and then use this as a guideline to make sure that you're getting all the space between your ears and your head. That's wiping the head and washing the 2 feet. Washing the 2 feet, going between the toes is not required in wudu, but it is in ghusl. And the feet would be up to and including the ankles. And the head would be, where you feel the bone over here, until the back of the head, back of the skull. Alright, so those are the fards. Dalk, fawr, intention, face, arms, / hands, wiping the head, and washing the feet. There's a difference, by the way, between washing and wiping. You wash your face. You take water, you put it on your face, and then you rub it in. That's wiping. That's washing. Wiping is you get your hands wet, and then after your hands have touched water, to wipe over, like for your hair and for your ears. So there's a distinction. The things that are wiped are the hair and ears again. Alright, now here are the sunnahs. There are also 7 sunnahs. Begin by washing your hands. So washing the hands at the beginning, a separate washing than the fard one, is also recommended. You can technically just intend that you're just doing your wudu and not specify whether the washing of your hands is the fard or the sunnah, and then you want to skip your hands later. Some people, they skip their hands and just do the arms when they reach the arms. But actually the way it should be done is you wash your hands at the start, and then you wash your hands again along with your arms. Clear? So beginning with washing the 2 hands is sunnah. Number 2, making a return past wiping the head. So you've already wiped your head from front to back. Now you're also going to go back to front with the same water, with the same wipe. That's another sunnah. Wiping the ears is a sunnah. I guess it's time for me to take this off. Okay. Wiping the ears. Thumb here, fingers there, inside the ear canal. Right? So it's just a wiping like that. So to go inside and check everything, no, that's disliked. That's excessive. Wiping of the head again, like this, all the way back. Okay, so that's wiping the head, and that's the wiping the ears. So the ears, again, finger can be inside the ear. Okay, just a quick wipe. It's not in detail and so on. And the thumb again behind, it can be behind the earlobe. And however you wipe your ears, it counts. You get the reward, but that's just a way to do it that's recommended. Line 63: rinsing the mouth. Water in your right hand. You don't swallow it. You do this even in wudu. Number 5: inhaling water in the nose. You do this even in fasting, even while fasting. Excuse me. You do this even while fasting, is to inhale water in the nose. But the Prophet ﷺ said, exaggerate. Inhale the water deeply if you can, unless you're fasting. So for fasting, just a quick sniff, and then that takes us to number 6, blowing the inhaled water out. It's not blowing your nose. So it's recommended without sound, just inhaling the water out. Like that. Number 7, performing the fards in order. The fard aspects of wudu, to do those in order is sunnah. So the order of the fard is sunnah. In the Shafi'i madhab, that's the requirement that they have that we don't. So we have dalk and fawr. On top of the 4, we have niya, dalk, fawr. The Hanafis only have 4. We have niya, dalk, and fawr, so we have 7. We have intention, scrubbing, and continuity. They have also intention, and they have the order. So the order for them is fard, and their proof is actually pretty strong. They say that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that, I don't know, I'm saying this in a Maliki class, but that when Allah says wash the face, wash the hands and arms, wipe the head, and wash the feet. The fact that wipe was included third. It wasn't wash these 3 and wipe this one. That would be more efficient if the order didn't matter, right? But the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put wash, wipe, wash, then they said that proves that the order was intentional. And the order is intended by that, and that means that it's required. So their proof is pretty good. Okay. But yeah, for us the order of the fards is only sunnah. And the order of the sunnahs, like a face, like washing the hands at the beginning, rinsing the mouth and the nose, taking the water out of the nose, the order of the sunnahs for us is mandub. Because now we're going to get into the mandubs. Line 64, and 11 fadilas have come. There are 11, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi. There are 11 mandubs. There are 11 recommendations. Recommended actions in wudu. So what are those 11 recommended actions? Number 1, saying Bismillah at the start. A note here, say Bismillah outside of the bathroom. Number 2, choosing a pure location. And a note here is, and the water that you use should be for wudu. So it's not just any water that you use. Like, if you find just some water, like the example that was given was toilet water, right? in the thing, right? Even if the toilet's perfectly clean, it's disliked, obviously, to use that water, even if it's absolutely pristine and was sitting in that toilet tank, that's never been used, to be used for najasa. Okay. So choosing a pure location, which means not in the bathroom. If you have a sink in the garage, or a sink anywhere outside of your bathroom itself, the place where you urinate and so on, some people, they have a separate section. That's actually recommended for us to have a separate washing area than the toilet. Choosing a pure location. Line 65, number 3, minimizing one's wasting of water, to be conservative with the water, to not waste water. So putting the water on full blast, you're going against what is recommended. Number 4, putting the water container that one dips one's hands into on the right side. So if you're using a scooping container, you put that to your right side, you scoop with your right hand, or you scoop with both hands and then you wash. You make wudu by scooping from the right side. However, sometimes you don't have a scooping container. Sometimes you have a pouring container. Right? And that one you'll put on your left side so you can pour it into your right hand and use that. So pouring container, left side, scooping container, right side. Number 5, washing the parts 2 or 3 times. This is actually incorrect. It shouldn't be translated like this. Washing the parts a 2nd time, that's one mandub, and washing the parts a 3rd time is another mandub. You get a reward for the 2nd time, you get a reward for the 3rd time. 2 is better than 1, 3 is better than 2. Except for the hair. The hair the first time is fard, and the return wipe is sunnah, but it's done once. That's it. Line 66, number 6, starting with the right limbs before the left. So if you do your left before your right, your wudu is fine, your sunnahs are fine, but it's just not mandub to do that. It's mandub to do otherwise. Number 7, using a natural wood toothstick, using a miswak is also recommended. When you use a miswak for your wudu, when should you use that miswak? Before you do your wudu, before you start your wudu. Not while you're doing your mouth, before you do your wudu. If you don't have a miswak, it is still recommended for you to brush your teeth using your finger, but you would do that while rinsing your mouth. So while rinsing your mouth. But if you actually have a miswak, then it's recommended to use that miswak before you begin your wudu. Number 8 is performing the sunnah parts in order, meaning the face, hands, mouth, and nose, and then having and ears, hands, mouth, nose, ears, and then it is also mandub. It's another reward to order the sunnahs among the fard parts properly. So then the order we have of hands, mouth, nose, face, arms, hair, ears, feet, that is, we're fulfilling a sunnah by keeping that order, because it's a sunnah to do the fards in order. We're fulfilling a mandub by keeping the sunnahs in order, and we're fulfilling a mandub by ordering the sunnahs and fards together in that way. So you're getting, mashallah, 3 rewards for that order. Line 67, number 10, starting the wipe of the head from the forehead. So starting the wipe of the head from the forehead in itself is recommended. And 11, dalk between, or takhleel, combing between the toes. When you're washing your feet, to go through the toes individually, to go through the toes is a recommendation on its own. Now is the makruhs. I didn't say we'd be doing the makruhs, but we have about 9 minutes left. So here are the disliked matters. It is disliked to exceed the wajib area. So up to your arms, that's it. Don't go beyond. Or exceed the number of prescribed repetitions, to do 4, 5 instead of 3. That's disliked for wiping and washing. The person who is unable to perform one part of wudu right after the other can pick up where he left off if the gap is not long, meaning that the limbs would not dry under a moderate climate. So if a minute and a half hasn't passed and you pause, that's fine, just keep going from where you left off. The person who remembers a missed fard part, so we now have done with the makruhs. The makruhs, we said to exceed the wajib area or to do more than you need. That's it. A different ruling for number 69. The person who is unable to perform one part of the fards after the other can pick up where he left off if the gap is not long. For number 70, the person who remembers a missed fard, let's do this, inshallah khair. The person who remembers a missed fard part after a long gap should do it alone when he remembers. So if you remembered a fard, oh man, when I was making wudu just now, or a few minutes ago, I got so distracted when I was doing my hair, when I was washing my face, that it went in my hair and then it fixed my hair and I thought I was doing my hair, so I skipped whatever's after the face. So then that person can go back and they can go to whatever's after the face and do that. And they don't have to do the parts that they already did, which is the hair and the ears and the feet. So they'll just do they did their face, so they skip their arms basically. So they'll just go back and do their arms. Okay? Because, didn't they have a gap of longer than a minute and a half? Yeah, but they had forgotten. So once you remember, then you have fawr time to return. You have about a minute and a half or 2 minutes to go back, find some water, and do the parts that you missed. And you just do them, and that's it. However, if you remembered a fard while you're still making wudu, then you should go back to it and do everything after it. Unless it was just a tiny spot, or a sunnah, like the rinsing the mouth, then you just go back and do it after you're done with your fard, and you wouldn't do everything after it. For the part of the fard limb, you just go back to it. You just, I missed a spot in my arm. That's it, and you're good, and just keep going with your wudu. So again, the person who remembers a missed fard part after a long gap should do it alone when he remembers. But he remembers shortly afterwards, as in fawr time has not passed, continuity has not been broken, then he should do the missed part and all of the parts after it. If this person forgot a fard of wudu prays and then remembers after the prayer that they forgot the fard, then his prayer is now invalid. And he who remembers his missing sunnah should do it whenever he remembers, to be better prepared for the next prayer which enters. They don't have to repeat the prayer. Alright? Now, inshallah, we'll take questions. Alaikum salam. No questions? Any questions? This isn't the order that I generally teach. This is the order that the book has. So that's why we're doing it in this order. I have a different, for somebody who learns Islam or is learning Islam for the first time, learning their wudu and ghusl, I have a different sheet that we go through, simplifying things and so on. But these are the details in this book and the rulings that are pertaining to this book. I mentioned the excuse for the braids. Very importantly, I need to emphasize again for the ladies. Nail polish, fake nails on your toes or your hands. These are barriers from the water to reach your skin and nails. If the skin or the nails are not reached, there's a preventative barrier. The wudu will not be valid, ghusl will not be valid, prayer will not be valid. So be careful. What other thing generally is missed? Yeah, the face. make sure you're doing those things deeply. The arms, make sure your hands are open, you're getting both sides. Oh yes, where did we say beginning with the front? Oh yeah, yes, I forgot. In regard to beginning with the front of the head. Beginning with the front doesn't just apply for the head, it's for all the limbs that have a front. So starting at the top of the face, perhaps, when you wash your face. Starting at the tips of the fingers when you're doing your hands and your arms. Starting at the tips of your feet when you're washing your feet. So starting at the front is a mandub for all those different things. Anything else that I can remember? Questions really help me remember the things that I'm forgetting, subhanAllah, to mention that are peripheral to this, that are not necessarily mentioned in the book. But those are the main things. The biggest thing is the women's issue. So be mindful of your wudu, because purification is half of your faith.
So with the ghusl, is it permissible to do your whole entire ghusl with the washcloth instead of your hand?
Is it permissible to do your entire ghusl? We aren't talking about ghusl yet, but for both wudu and ghusl, it is permissible to use a washcloth instead of...
What about soap? Or does it have to be...
You can't use soap. So if you have soap, then that... or if you have a soapy washcloth, for example, then it's that soap is considered, now the water that's on the washcloth is considered mixed, and it's no longer purifying. And another important note, this applies for purifying an area as well. So if a baby, for example, urinated in a particular area and you want to wash that area and you just wash it with chemicals or you wipe it with paper towels, it's not fine to pray there, even if the najasa is completely gone for us, right? What you have to do is you have to use also pure and purifying water to remove najasa. So that's a very important, critical thing. A lot of people, they'll just use wipes or whatever. No, you need to use actual pure and purifying water. I think that's the main content of what we wanted to cover. Alhamdulillah, we're just on time. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Inshallah, the topics today will be primarily the causes. Jazakallahu khairan. Primarily